I would argue that you bring in sales at the very beginning of the ABM, right? Because they will help you. You need them. First of all, you need their inputs, you need their buy-in, because at the end of that journey, you're handing folks off to them. So you need them along the ride, but they can also be invaluable in helping assess leads, assess accounts, help you build that ideal customer profile.
Welcome to Agents of Change, a podcast about the future of B2B marketing, featuring insights from executives at top agencies. I'm Danielle O'Neil with Leadtail. Let's hop on in. I'm so happy to welcome Kelsey Harkins. She is Group Account Director over at Centerline Digital, and we have had the opportunity to work together before, so I'm happy to have this conversation with her. Hey, Kelsey.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Thanks so much for joining us today. As you know, we have a great working rapport. Always enjoy it.
This is great.
Yes, exactly. We always enjoy working with Centerline. I always enjoy working with you. So happy to have you on today. And just wanted to talk about some of the trends that we're seeing in marketing. So first, Kelsey, do you want to give a little introduction as to who you are, what you do?
Sure. So I actually started out, I like to joke, I'm a reformed PR girl. I spent the first, 5 or 6 years of my career more in the PR space, and moved full time into marketing about 6.5 years ago, working primarily here at Centerline with clients in the technology, like B2B technology space.
Fantastic. And you have some cool clients, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But as we think about your clients and really the range of clients that you have, we know that you're working in multiple industries. But when we see all of these industries, what is one thing that remains the same for you and your clients?
Totally. A couple things come to mind. One, we hear a lot of our clients asking about how to deliver really excellent content experiences and customer experience. So kind of tiptoeing, marketers are tiptoeing more into that customer experience world and really thinking about that end-to-end journey and how to deliver what prospects and customers need at the right time. On the other hand, at the same time, they're being asked, like all of us, I think these days, to do more with less and to be really strategic and thoughtful about where they spend their time and their money to deliver that value to customers and ultimately deliver value back to their business. And then the third thing I just want to point out, we've been talking to our clients a lot, particularly those in the technology space in B2B, about the shift in who their buyer is. And a lot of people don't know this. I think it's LinkedIn published a study about this a couple of years ago. It's really interesting. Right now, millennials, so that's people between the ages of 28 and 42, actually make up 60% of the buying audience in B2B tech. So right now, today in B2B, more than half of your buyer audience are these younger folks, and they have different buying behaviors and priorities than their older cohorts have. So marketers are having to kind of flip the script a little bit in how they think about who their audience is that's making that buying decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And that influences so much of what we're doing, the different trends that we're following, knowing that these buyers are younger.
Totally.
And one of those trends, and especially like if you want to do buzzwords, if you will, that we're hearing a lot, and I think you are too, is on ABM. Everybody's wanting to focus on ABM. What is account-based marketing? What does it look like? How do we do it? So how do you, Kelsey, define ABM? And what in Centerline's world is ABM and what is it not?
Sure. So I think the reason this ABM trend has kind of stuck and is still gaining momentum is because it answers two of those challenges, right? It helps you deliver better, more customized experiences, and it's a very targeted investment, right? Like it helps you focus your attention on the accounts that are sort of primed to buy or that are primed to have higher lifetime value or whatever, whatever your criteria are. So we kind of define it as basically just a strategy to concentrate your resources. So your time and your energy on a set of target accounts within a market that you think have good propensity to buy, that are good fits for what you have to offer. And one great analogy you hear a lot in the space, you may have heard this before, that it's basically fishing with a spear instead of fishing with a net.
Yes.
And I think that might be the best, simplest descriptor I've heard.
Yes, no, for real it is. And I love that. And I love that it's, one way that we're defining it is it's the marketing one-to-one as opposed to the one-to-many. Your LinkedIn page is your one-to-many. Your ABM approach is your one-to-one.
Exactly. And I think the other kind of nice benefit to it before we get into the what it isn't, we've seen the number of touch points and like interactions it takes to get someone from awareness down the funnel to a conversion has grown like marginally year over year for a long time. Over the past like 2.5 years during the pandemic, it's gone from an average of 17 touch points to 27, which is huge. Like that's a big difference. So I think one nice sort of benefit to ABM is you can maybe, by being really strategic about what content and what messages you're putting in front of those prospects, maybe shorten that number of interactions a little bit, or maybe make them more valuable. So by the time they get down to the point of interacting with a seller or making that purchase decision, you've risen to the top of that considered set, right? So it's just something, a little aside to kind of keep in mind.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree there. And, it's really one of the ways that you can set yourself apart from everybody else that is trying to approach them with the same solutions, with the same ideas as you. So we know what it is. So what is it not?
So I would say it is not, these are like common misconceptions that we hear. It is not industry or vertical marketing. So while that is one to few, that's not getting down to the account level and answering specific things that particular prospect needs. Although, if you're doing industry or vertical marketing, a lot of the data you have from those campaigns might be able to help inform your messaging or your content for an ABM strategy. It also is not slapping your target account's logo on a generic piece of content. Now, sometimes you may have a great piece of content that's performing like gangbusters, but you need to still look at it through that account lens. And how do we customize this just a little bit more? How do we customize the messaging so that it's speaking more directly to this particular prospect and what we know about them? Not just putting, ABM company logo on the top and they see the same thing as everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that kind of leads into what is the difference then if we're talking account-based marketing, ABM, to account-based sales, and how do you operate them separate from each other?
I think it's a little tricky because there is a lot of sort of crossover. They have to play nicely together, right? But I would say account-based sales is further down funnel, right? It involves some marketing support. It involves a lot of buy-in, obviously, from your sales teams, your sales organization. And also a lot of times, particularly in tech, it might involve your product or your offering experts, those more technical experts, to speak to how does our product apply to this account and what they're doing more specifically. And so basically it's a sales approach to target accounts rather than single contacts or leads, and to try to address the concerns of like all of the stakeholders on that buying committee. Which I'll throw another stat at you. This one's from Forrester. Maybe we can pop the link to the study in the show notes or something. That right now, this was 2021 stat, but it will still hold true. 63% of B2B purchases have more than 4 people involved in that purchase. So that's why account-based sales and thinking about that buying group, that decision-making group as a whole is really important. Because they're all going to be coming at it with slightly different priorities and slightly different responsibilities back to the business.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And especially because everybody is going to have a different need for that solution. So why IT might want it versus the CTO, it's all going to have a different need for it. So what is the consequence when we get these two confused?
That's such a good question. So I think, as marketers, we all know that right audience, right message, right time, right channel. That's like the basics, right? We've got to get that right. And I think when you get these two confused, you risk getting like at least one or two of those wrong. So for instance, a successful account-based sales effort, in my experience, will get much more granular into the product and specifically, like I said before, how it solves that particular customer's challenges, like how it could save them time, how it could save them money. So number one, it's really hard to do that accurately unless you have some serious background and knowledge of their business where maybe they're already a customer and this is an account-based sales play for an upsell or a cross sell or for a retention or a contract renewal, something like that. And number two, if you try to do ABS when you should be doing ABM to drive awareness about your brand or your product, and they're not ready for that deeper, more granular information, it's kind of wasted energy, right? So even if you get the information right, starting with that hard sell is going to turn some people off, particularly our millennial buyers who prefer to do a lot of that upfront research on their own. So they need that full spectrum of content from awareness all the way down the funnel to feel really confident in their decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you just brought up a really great point that they're doing so much research on their own. And so when we're thinking about the ABM, what can we provide to them they haven't already seen on our website? So when we're thinking about these and really defining what ABM and ABS are, what do you consider a successful campaign and what are these metrics that help you determine what those key activities are for a successful campaign?
So it can vary wildly, but if I had to boil down to just a few, I would say engagement rate. It seems really simple on the surface, but if you're doing your personalization and customization well, that ABM campaign, your engagement rate should improve over your your other digital campaigns. Um, this is especially helpful to like while you're piloting or you're kind of just getting started to help you assess, are you targeting the right accounts? Is your messaging right? So you can do a little bit of optimization and testing to then like expand later once you kind of learn a little bit about how your audience is responding. And then as you get further down funnel, I would say like sales cycle length, ideally that starts to get a bit shorter. And then even further down, obviously, at the end of the day, we're all responsible back to our businesses for conversion rates and wins. So while it's a little bit hard to attribute sometimes that conversion back to a specific ABM tactic, you can look at that and say, like, how are we contributing? Let's make, are we seeing that improve? Perhaps that's, tied back and then it kind of gets into your ad tech stack, right? Like what tools and abilities do you have to track those things all the way through? But I think that's where combining, like having both of these things in play helps you with that attribution because you're funneling people from an ABM to an ABS effort. And that helps you draw that like clearer through line.
Yeah, absolutely. So that actually brings up another key point here is when we're talking about ABM and looking at these metrics and the activities in which we're engaged with these key contacts. At what point do you bring in sales to now take that from an ABM effort to an ABS effort?
Well, I would argue that you bring in sales at the very beginning of the ABM, right? Because they will help you, you need them. First of all, you need their inputs, you need their buy-in, because at the end of that journey, you're handing folks off to them. So you need them along the ride, but they can also be invaluable in helping assess leads, assess accounts, help you build that ideal customer profile. So who do we want to be our customers? What types of accounts tend to have longevity, high lifetime value, which tend to be the stickiest, or which tend to be the hardest for us to close? Where do we need help? Because we know we're a good fit for these customers, but we have a hard time closing the deal for some reason. So having all those insights right up front just gets them more bought in for down the road when you need to lean on them to kind of see things through at the end. Yeah.
So how would you, Kelsey, help somebody have that conversation with sales about the importance of sales and marketing working together for this specific campaign? Because we know sometimes there can be friction of don't touch my account. So how do we bring that in so that it truly is an alignment together?
Yeah, that is tough. I think part of it is in close alignment with your sales enablement arm of your marketing team. They typically have a really good finger on the pulse of like what will resonate with sellers. And then I think helping them see what they'll get out of it, like what insights or data or help you can offer them at the end. So things like, we can share with you all the intent data for everyone that interacts with this campaign. We can give you information about what topics they want to know more about. We can give you information about what types of content they engage with the most. And then that just gives them an inside track, right? When they go into those conversations, they already have all of that background. So I think showing them the like, what's in it for me, and engaging with sales enablement to make sure those, if there are pieces of content, whether to educate the sellers or for them to use with clients, however you define that, making sure those right pieces of content are in place once somebody moves through that ABM campaign funnel and is ready to take that next step, that they've got all the tools they need to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what metrics would you suggest for marketers to provide to sales so that they can now take this information and say, okay, here's what you need to do, and here's everything that you're equipped with to help move that sales funnel?
I think it's things like, I mentioned intent data. I think it's things like, we saw them, this cohort from this account overwhelmingly interacted with content about ROI and cost savings. So perhaps you lead your sales conversation with, here are some of the financial benefits to going with us versus a competitor. Or this particular account seemed to gravitate toward content about sustainability of the product. So maybe we would go in and lead with that. So I think it's a little bit softer. It's more helping them with like how to message or what that lead with should be, rather than, obviously we can't, they know their clients better. Ideally they will know this account better than we do. But it's giving them those tips of like, you may not have realized, but here's what we're seeing. And kind of give them that leg up to know how to go in, what to lead with.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a big part of it. And I think that kind of comes back to that earlier conversation we had about how do you bring in sales, is letting them know there's full transparency to this campaign, see everything that the account is doing, and we'll be able to arm you with more information to open up that conversation.
I mean, the big catch there is your MarTech or AdTech stack has to support that.
Right.
But I'm guessing we're probably going to get to that in just a minute.
And that leads us right into this next part here. So talking about MarTech and our AdTech, we know that Google third party right now, their cookies and how they've changed everything is really starting to interfere, shall we say, with some of these digital efforts. So how do you get past this when it comes to targeting and metrics for ABM campaigns and other campaigns with these key accounts?
So a lot still remains to be seen. There are a lot of very smart cookies, no pun intended, out there right now trying to like crack this and where do we go from here? So big temporary sigh of relief across the industry. Google has pushed this rollout back to 2024. So we do have a little time to figure it out. There's a really great article about this from BrandGen.io that I'll share the link so we can post it as well. So to sum up, so far right now, you can still pretty effectively target companies without third-party cookies. But it gets really tricky if you want to get down to an individual person or role. So there's kind of two ways around it that we know of right now. One, more gated content. Obviously, there are pluses and minuses to that. There are a lot of people who see a gate and immediately bounce. So being really smart about how you lead them to the water and hopefully get them to drink, like make them understand that there's going to be value in giving away a little bit of information. Totally. And then the second one is doing more targeting, like contextual ad targeting for ABM. So you may not be able to get precisely to the, 5 or 6 people in your buying group, but you can get pretty close, right? You can have some reasonable degree of certainty that they will be within the audience if you are targeting contextually. And we know, just as a general rule, contextually targeted ads far outperform strictly cookie targeted. So even if you're still using cookie targeting, layer that contextual targeting on top of it. And here's we get back to the ad tech question, the right marketing automation platform can really, really help with that because they have a lot of those tools already built in.
Yeah, absolutely. And that will make your lives a lot easier once you've
Totally.
got that information, you know exactly where they're going. So now that we're talking about fun things, what are you guys working on right now that excites you? And what do you have coming up that you're really excited to start working on?
So right now, we are working with a major technology services provider to tackle the ever persistent challenge in ABM and ABS, which is that friction between hyper personalization and how do you do that at scale?
Yep.
Right. So we're working with them on not only channel strategy and that type of thing, but also on specific pieces of content like video, like what we're calling impact reports for key accounts. So building a really beautiful piece of content that highlights everything this client has done for the customer in the last 2 years and the value that they've brought. We're sort of in the early stages. I'm really excited to see how it goes, but it's it's like a fun logistic puzzle. Like, how do we make this feel really special?
Yeah.
Recreating the wheel every single time as far as the actual content production so that we can get it done quicker. We can get more volume done. They can target more accounts. So that kind of leads me to just a couple of hot tips.
Yeah.
Sure. Anybody out there that's thinking about this that maybe hasn't tried it before or is sort of new to the ABM, like be really intentional, be thoughtful about bringing the right members of your team on board early, bring on a partner if you feel like you need it, and be choosy. So don't try to go after every single possible lead. Start small, pilot small. That way, if you fail, which you won't, of course, but if you fail small and you learn, and then you can kind of expand from there. And that also helps you, starting small and being really choosy about who you go after, hopefully helps you get some quick wins. And then you get organizational buy-in that and hopefully the funding follows to then expand and scale the program.
Well, Kelsey, so much fun talking all things ABM, ABS with you. I think you and I could probably sit and talk for hours about this.
Yeah, this was awesome. I like to joke that I'm an SME, but not an expert. I'm like a subject matter enthusiast.
Right.
So I really loved being on and appreciate you having me.
Well, Kelsey, thank you so much. And we look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Yeah, thank you.